Now, MPs have been sitting in Parliament today to discuss matters that affects the lives of Ghanaians. Well, Joseph Opoku-Gakpo is our correspondent there, and he joins us via Zoom with an update. So, what has engaged the attention of Parliament today? Right, Joseph, you can hear me. If you can hear me, what has engaged the attention of the MPs today? You're still live here on the Pulse, here on the JoyNews channel. My name is Daniel Dazi. We'll soon be linking up with my colleague Joseph Opoku-Gakpo, who is currently in Parliament, and he'll be updating us on some of the issues that Parliament has been discussing today. A number of key issues, of course, on the roster, as always, here in the House, and we always endeavor to bring that to you live here on the JoyNews channel. Of course, because of the voter registration exercise, we understand not a lot of members of Parliament have been in the chamber. It's one of the issues that we want to deal with because of the voter registration exercise. You find that, and those are the images that you have. You find that, unfortunately, a large number of the members of Parliament are not in the chamber. And so it's one of the issues that I'll be asking. We know, for instance, that the Speaker of Parliament is not in the House today. Earlier today, we understand that Joseph Osei-Wusu, who is the first Deputy Speaker of Parliament, is chairing that meeting. Now, the Clerk to Parliament, Cyrilo Insia, announced to the House today about the Right Honourable Speaker Mike Okwe's absence from the chair. Now, we're going to go ahead and look into a couple of the things that happened today. Dr. Bernard Okoboy, who is Deputy Minister for Health, Member of Parliament for Lejo Kuku, he says that the infection rate of COVID-19 in the schools is 0.017%. He presented a paper and he concluded by wishing final years for WASSCE the very, very best. He says that government doesn't wish for COVID-19 cases in high schools. Is this awareness that Veronica buckets have been provided in all schools? There are 178 cases, very important, 178 cases recorded in both senior and junior high schools with 8 recoveries. All confirmed cases are in good shape. Let's get some updates on that from Joseph. So, Joseph, Opoku-Gakpo has joined us. Now, we understand that Dr. Bernard Okoboy made a statement today on the floor of Parliament. Exactly.
So, he's been giving MPs an update on Ghana's COVID-19 situation and what is being done to contain it. He's been disclosing that the nation has spent about $34.6 million on testing alone when it comes to COVID-19 at a cost of $100 per test, which means that a lot of state resources have actually been sunk into the whole idea of testing for COVID-19. And he goes on to make the point that there's also been additional expenditure on treating those who've been infected. He's also been giving disclosures on what's been happening with healthcare personnel. He says about 2,000 healthcare personnel have tested positive. About 1,800 of them have recovered from the COVID-19, and they are working to ensure that the rest are also safe. He's been saying that healthcare personnel are being infected, not necessarily because of the absence of PPEs, but a number of other factors as well. And he says that the nation's recovery rate when it comes to COVID-19 is around 84%, which is very encouraging. And so in summary, he's been patting the government on its back when it comes to the efforts they've rolled out to deal with COVID-19. But he's been getting responses from the minority side. The chief whip on the minority side, who's also a member of Parliament Committee on Health, Muntaka Mubarak, has been asking that government pumps a lot more money into the COVID-19 containment. He says he thinks it's worrying that some contact tracers were disengaged and the whole situation was left alone for public health professionals to do. And so he wants government to invest a lot more when it comes to testing and tracing. And so those have been some of the conversations on COVID-19 on the floor of Parliament, Daniel.
Right, and we understand that we have done 346,990 tests, Joseph, with a 7.9% positivity rate. Now, this interesting figure here, the cost of one test is $100, Joseph.
Exactly, and that's what Dr. Okoboy says then amounts to the $34.6 million, which is the money that they've invested in the whole testing so far. And he used that to make a point that looking at the cost involved in testing, the advocacy for mass testing, which he says will bear no substantial results, wouldn't be necessary going forward, because he says that looking at the cost involved and the fact that when someone tests negative today, it's possible the person may be positive tomorrow. The whole case of the cost is how come mass testing wouldn't be necessary going forward. And so he's been asking Ghanaians generally to adhere to the various protocols when it comes to COVID-19. And he's also been talking about, speaking of investment, the allowances that are supposed to be paid to healthcare personnel, about 50% of their basic salaries when it comes to frontline healthcare persons. He says for the month of April, they've paid 6,000 frontline workers, another huge investment they are making into the fight against the COVID-19 virus, which is why he thinks Ghanaians should adhere to the necessary safety protocol so that more state resources are not invested just in that as far as dealing with the situation is concerned.
This issue of frontline workers, Joseph, we know that the challenge had been the definition of frontline worker. As far as you know, and from what the Deputy Minister said today, is there clarity on that issue?
He says that they are clear in their minds at the Health Ministry on who a frontline health worker is, and he defines a frontline health worker as someone who is working directly on an individual who has been affected by COVID-19 and that person is undergoing treatment. So that's the working definition they've given for healthcare, frontline health workers, people who are directly working on individuals who have tested positive for COVID-19. And he says from the identification that they say, they've identified 6,000 healthcare persons who fall within that particular category. And so for the month of April, they've done the payment of the 50% basic allowance to them. He makes the point that the process is ongoing. They will pay for the month that follows soon, but they are still going through a vetting and an auditing process. If there are any healthcare practitioners who think they fit that definition and qualification, they can submit their details, and when the payment is being done, it will be done to them. Muntaka Mubarak, who is the minority chief whip and member of the health committee, virtually contested the claim that there's been some payment of the allowance to these individuals, because Muntaka Mubarak said that they've been getting calls and indications that a lot of the frontline healthcare people haven't received the said payment, and he urged government to rectify all of those anomalies that have resulted in a situation where some of them have not released the amount in question.
Now, Joseph, help me out here. The number that you said earlier for the number that was given by the Deputy Health Minister is 6,000 or 60,000?
6,000 for the frontline healthcare persons. And the figure is 6,000. Yes, Daniel.
So if I can get that clarity, as far as the health ministry is concerned, the number of frontline health workers we have in Ghana are 6,000?
Are 6,000 per the working definition that he gave today in Parliament, as being people who are directly treating those who have been positively infected with COVID-19. That is the working definition that they're giving for those individuals. And they've identified 6,000 of them so far, that they've made the payment of the allowances to them for the month of April, and they are going through the processes to ensure that the subsequent months that follow, the amount in question will pay to those individuals as well.
That's quite interesting. There's another issue I just saw here that caught my eye, that he said everyone who was in state quarantine was fed 3 times a day. Right.
So he made the point that when it comes to the general treatment of COVID-19 patients, everyone who is being in a government facility for the necessary isolation and quarantine was fed 3 times a day, adding on to the cost of investment in taking care of these specific individuals. In making that point, he was explaining the kind of investment that they are making. So, for example, he went on to make a point that when it comes to the treatment centers that we have in Ghana, contrary to the claim that the treatment centers are getting full, he says rather the treatment centers are getting empty. And that one of the advocacy that have gone on is that government should build a lot more treatment centers, which he says is untenable. Because then he says that all over the world, no one is focusing attention on getting everyone who is affected by COVID-19 into a treatment center. He cited the example of America and made the point that you can't envisage a situation where when they had more than 2 million cases of COVID-19, all of them will be treated in government facilities, isolated. He says for those who are ready and willing and have the capacity to self-quarantine or self-isolate, it's an international standard that they encourage people to do a lot more of that, and that it was possible that when the number of cases was in the hundreds, people can then be taken to treatment centers anytime they test positive. But at the stage that the numbers are hitting the 100,000s and the 10,000s and the millions, the sustainable way around treating COVID-19 patients is encouraging them to self-isolate and treating themselves per the latest protocol with the World Health Organization, 14 days after which then they can come out, rather than advocating for the construction of more treatment centers so that then these people can be sent in there. He'd also been reacting to, if you recall, the interview you did, Daniel, on Joy Prime, when there was the disclosure that Ghana is actually leading in terms of the nations that are raising Africa's COVID-19 case count.
Right.
He says that any assumption at all that Ghana is contributing massively to that will actually be out of place, because he went on to cite an example that you go to a country like Niger, which is doing very minimal number of tests, as compared to Ghana that's doing huge tests. He says the benefit of increasing the testing is that it keeps the mortality rate low. So for a nation like Ghana, South Africa, Nigeria that are ramping up testing, you can't say that you can compare them to countries like Niger, which are testing very lowly, and say that Ghana rather is contributing to the case. For him, that is someone displaying a lack of understanding of how the virus is playing out and the efforts that Ghana is putting in place to contain the situation.
It's interesting you mentioned that, Joseph, and that was an interview that I had with the technical officer at the World Health Organization. And I asked her exactly that question about testing, and she literally stated that it cannot be the case, that it's simply because of testing that the cases are high in countries like Ghana and Nigeria. But Joseph, thank you very much. That was a very detailed, engaging discussion on what happened at Parliament, and we'll let you go now. We'll come back when we have more details, particularly on what the Deputy Health Minister has been revealing there. And we just left Parliament, where my colleague Joseph Opoku-Gakpo revealed 34.6 million has been spent on the fight against COVID-19, particularly treating of patients as far as and testing as far as Dr. Bernard Okoboy, the Deputy Health Minister, is concerned.